Anthony Mackie thought a trip home would mean paperwork and dinner with his dad. Instead, one viral traffic stop leaves his father bruised, witnesses scared silent, and a police report that doesn't match the clock. If something like this has touched your life, feel free to share your story below. By 5:45, the bullpen in the Jackson field office was still lit. Anthony Mackie had one hand on a stack of travel vouchers and the other on his phone, trying to ignore the way the screen kept lighting up. Dad. Again. He let it ring twice, not because he didn't care, but because every call from home usually meant a small crisis dressed up as no big deal. When he swiped to answer, the call flipped to video. His father's face filled the screen, tilted, shaking. Behind him, brake lights glowed and people stood on the sidewalk, watching. A white deputy leaned into the driver's window. "Evening, sir," the deputy said, voice polite in the way a locked door is polite. "Just a quick check." "Dad, what's going on?" Anthony asked, already moving away from his desk. "Son, his father started, then glanced toward the deputy. The nameplate on the uniform read Trent Waller. One hand hovered near the cuffs, thumb resting on metal. "Step out for me," Waller said, "real quick." "I'm 71, Anthony's father said. "I'm just going slow. What did I do?" A sticker on the patrol car door sat in the corner of the frame. Protect and serve, parked inches from his father's cheek like an unwanted caption. The deputy's body camera sat centered on his chest. The indicator light was dark. A bystander raised a phone. Waller's head snapped. "Turn that off," he said. The bystander didn't move fast enough. "Turn it off," Waller repeated louder, "or I'll take you in with him." "Sir, this is Hattiesburg," someone yelled from behind the camera, half warning, half prayer. Anthony heard his father swallow. "They kept my license," his father said, voice lower now. "Told me to come to the station tomorrow." "If you cooperate, this'll stay smooth," Waller said. His father tried to speak again, palms up, a gesture Anthony had seen his whole life when bills came due or someone bigger decided to be offended. "What's the charge?" his father asked. Waller's hand moved. A sharp crack hit the mic, then his father's head jerked sideways. For a second, the camera showed asphalt and shoes as the phone dipped. "Don't make it worse," Waller said, calm as a weather report. Somebody cursed. Somebody else shouted, "Hey!" Waller looked past the driver's door toward the gas station on the corner. "Camera there's busted," he said, like he was saving everyone time. "Don't bother." Anthony tried to speak, but the audio stuttered. The image froze on his father's mouth open, one eye watering. "Dad, listen to me," he said. "Stay." The office suddenly felt too small. He shoved the vouchers away, grabbed his keys, and punched his supervisor's number while walking out. The line was still ringing when the night air hit his face. The drive from Jackson to Hattiesburg blurred into taillights and gas receipts. His father's address sat in the GPS like a dare. When he pulled into the driveway, the porch light was on, but no one stepped out. He knocked once, then used his key. The TV played low in the living room. His father sat at the kitchen table, a red mark on one cheek, hands folded. He nodded toward a chair. On the table lay a crumpled citation and an empty plastic bag. The silence was practical. Anthony pocketed the citation, took his father's elbow, and led him to the car. At Forest General's ER intake, the nurse looked up, then down at the cheek, then back at the form. "You fall?" "Yeah," his father said. "Something like that." The nurse typed without changing her face. Anthony gave insurance cards, signed consent, and watched the triage bracelet snap on with the soft finality of a handcuff around an old wrist. By morning, the clip had grown legs. It jumped from local Facebook groups to national accounts, captioned with words Anthony wouldn't use in front of his father. On the way back from the hospital, a neighbor watering her lawn paused and stared, hose still running. Another man across the street raised 2 fingers in a half wave, then retreated. Someone else offered, "Praying for y'all." like prayer was a liability waiver. The mail carrier rolled by slow, no eye contact. Back at the house, his father set a bag of frozen peas against his cheek and stared at the kitchen calendar. A cousin called, asked if they were handling it, then suggested they shouldn't stir things up. Anthony placed the phone face down. He printed screenshots, wrote down times, and asked his father to repeat what Waller said. "Tomorrow at the station," his father answered. "They said it like an appointment." Anthony nodded and slid a pen across the table. His supervisor returned the late-night call after sunrise. The voice came through clipped, careful, the way people speak when they know a line is recorded somewhere. "You with family?" "Yes." "Then hear me. You can't run point on this. Personal conflict. You document, you forward, you stay clean." Anthony agreed, because arguing would only create a second file. The call ended with a reminder to email any media links to public affairs, as if the problem was branding for now. At the Hattiesburg police station, the lobby smelled like copier toner and old coffee. Anthony waited behind a man contesting a parking ticket, then stepped up to the glass. The desk clerk slid a packet through the slot, pages stapled thick. "Fill every box," she said, smiling like a teacher. "If you miss one, it gets returned." Anthony asked for body cam footage and incident numbers. The smile stayed. Her fingers tapped a sign that read, "All requests must be written." Outside, a woman in jeans and a blazer leaned on the hood of a dusty sedan, phone in hand. She didn't introduce herself with apologies. "Anthony Mackie?" "Yeah." "Marisol Vega. I'm tracking that stop." He almost asked how she knew his name, then remembered the internet. She nodded toward the packet. "They don't have to bend the truth here," she said. "They just have to tire you out." Her tone carried no comfort, only instructions and a map of consequences. Marisol walked with him to the sidewalk, keeping pace as if they'd already agreed on next steps. "The guy who filmed it," she said. "Deputy Waller pulled him aside later, told him he could be charged for interfering." Anthony kept his eyes on the front doors. "He won't answer calls now," she added. "And the version online is trimmed. You can hear it. The sound cuts right before the slap." She held up her phone, showing 2 uploads with timestamps. Back at the glass, the clerk stamped the first page and tore off a receipt. Anthony read the line printed near the bottom. "Please return later for processing." It sounded like a threat written in font. He tucked it into his wallet anyway. Marisol watched his hands, then the street, then the station windows. Her phone buzzed. Color drained from her face as she checked the screen. Without explaining, she grabbed his sleeve and started walking fast to her car. Anthony kept his seatbelt on, phone in hand, watching the station shrink in the side mirror. She didn't head toward the courthouse or a newsroom. She pulled into a diner off the highway where the parking lot was half work trucks, half retirees, and everyone looked up long enough to decide who belonged. A waitress dropped 2 waters without asking. The booth vinyl stuck to Anthony's jacket sleeve when he shifted. At the counter, somebody was already talking about that slap, the way people talked about rain chances. "Whole thing's on the internet," a man said. "Bet the old guy mouthed off first," another voice answered, casual as ordering gravy. Marisol slid her phone across the table, screen turned down until the waitress walked away. Then she flipped it up and zoomed on a document photo. "Incident report," she said. "Got it from a friend who owes me. Don't ask how." The report header showed Hattiesburg Police Department, date, location, and an officer named Anthony didn't need to read twice. Deputy Trent Waller. The timestamp sat there like it was proud of itself. "It says the stop happened at 6:19, Marisol said. "Your dad's clip hit social at 6:07. People were reposting by 6:10. Anthony pulled up the upload time on his own phone. Numbers didn't argue. The report didn't match the clock, not even if someone stretched it. Marisol tapped the narrative section. "Look at the reason," she said. Anthony read it once, then again slower. "Driver aggressive, raised voice, refused lawful commands, created a disturbance." His jaw tightened, but he didn't say it. He set his phone beside the report and wrote the times on a napkin with the diner's logo. Across the room, a woman laughed too loud about something unrelated. The sound made the words on the report feel even more absurd, like the paper was trying to audition for a different reality. "Your dad went slow in the middle of the road," Marisol said. "Now he's a threat to public order." "How'd you get this so fast?" Anthony asked. Marisol lifted one shoulder. "Small town. People love gossip. Documents are just gossip with staples." She let that hang, not for drama, but because the waitress returned with coffee and pretended not to listen. After they paid, Marisol stayed close as Anthony walked out, eyes scanning the lot the way he'd been trained to scan rooms. Nothing obvious. That was what bothered him. She drove them back toward the intersection from the video, stopping at the corner gas station Waller had pointed out like it was an alibi. Anthony went in with a calm face and his badge left in his wallet. He asked the cashier about the cameras like he was a customer who'd lost a receipt. "Yeah, we got 'em," the cashier said, chewing gum. "But that day, system was down. Maintenance." "Who did the maintenance?" Anthony asked. The cashier shrugged, already drifting toward the next customer. "Company guy. Or maybe the manager. I don't know. It's always something." Anthony glanced up at the small printed notice taped to the counter by the lottery tickets. It wasn't fancy, just block letters. Footage auto overwrite in 7 days. The deadline sat there with the cheer of a store policy, like the camera was doing everyone a favor by forgetting. Anthony took a step to read it closer, then stepped back before the cashier could decide he was suspicious. Outside, Marisol leaned against her car and watched traffic roll through the same lane where the stop had happened. "The guy who filmed your dad," she said, keeping her voice level. "They brought him in last night. Told him he could catch an interference charge." "Did he delete it?" Anthony asked. "He says he didn't." Marisol's mouth tightened. "But his cousin called me and said the family's scared. They've got kids. They don't want a cruiser parked outside every night." Anthony didn't answer with sympathy words. He pulled out the napkin and added a line. "Gas station footage overwrite, 7 days." Then another. "Incident report time mismatch." Then, "Witness pressured." Marisol watched him write like she'd seen men do this before, building a wall out of details because walls were safer than feelings. "You're making a timeline," she said. "It's the only thing that doesn't care who your friends are," Anthony replied. Marisol gave a short, humorless breath. "Paperwork. The great equalizer." They circled the block once. Anthony noted where a patrol car could park without being seen from the station, where a camera angle would miss a sidewalk, where a car could pull out fast. He didn't narrate it. His hand just moved, pen scratching against the back of an old receipt. Back at the diner lot, they sat for a minute with the engine off, both phones charging from the console. A message popped up on Anthony's screen from an unknown number. No greeting, just a photo. It showed a typed statement titled, "Withdrawal of Complaint." A blank line waited for a signature. His father's name was already filled in. Anthony held the phone up so Marisol could see. Her eyes narrowed, then flicked to the window. A dark sedan rolled into the lot and stopped in front of them, idling as if it had all the time in the world. Anthony kept his phone raised, screen showing the pre-filled withdrawal statement. Marisol's hand hovered over the door lock. No one got out. The car just sat, like a reminder with wheels, until traffic noise swallowed Marisol's breath. Anthony started the car first. He didn't reach for his badge, he reached for a pen. Marisol pointed her chin at the sedan, then drove off slow, forcing it to follow or leave. It left. 2 turns later, Anthony headed back to the station with paperwork stacked in his seat. The lobby clerk recognized him and sighed as if he'd returned a library book late. Anthony slid a typed request through the slot. Preserve body camera footage, patrol GPS, dispatch audio, and all reports. He kept his tone flat. Marisol waited behind him, eyes on the cameras that never blinked. The clerk smiled again, the same smile that came with stapled packets. "You'll need to submit this in triplicate." "I already did," Anthony said. "Then you can return later." He asked to see a supervisor. She pointed at a chair and told him to wait like he was ordering fries. Deputy Trent Waller walked out from a back hallway, hat tucked under his arm, moving with the comfort of someone greeting his own living room. His eyes landed on Anthony's face, then on Marisol's phone. FBI has to stand in line too, he said as if it were community news. Anthony didn't rise to it. He repeated his request, slower, and asked Waller to note the complaint number on the report. Put it in writing, Waller said. It is in writing, Anthony answered. He asked for the watch commander. Waller's mouth twitched. Then he nodded toward hallway he'd come from. A lieutenant appeared, all clipped politeness, and took the request like it smelled wrong. He didn't promise anything. He only said, "We'll review." Anthony watched Waller's chest as he talked. The body camera light stayed dark, even under fluorescent glare, as if recording was optional once the story felt settled. Waller drifted closer, lowering his voice so the clerk couldn't claim she heard. You really want to make this a thing? Anthony slid the request copy into a folder and asked for a receipt. Waller's grin widened a touch, like Anthony had confirmed it was bigger than one old man. Outside, Marisol made 3 calls while Anthony leaned on the hood and wrote down the lieutenant's name. One call ended with a sharp inhale. They brought the filmer back in, she said. He signed a withdrawal. Anthony asked where the original file was. Marisol shook her head, not on phone. They drove to a complex Marisol named without looking at her notes. A young man answered the door, eyes fixed past Anthony's shoulder. I didn't see anything, he said. But you filmed it, Marisol replied. He held up his phone. The gallery was empty where the video should have been. At his father's house, Anthony found the man folding laundry like it was other Tuesday. Anthony told him the witness had backed out and the full clip was gone. His father didn't curse or rant. He pressed the peas to his cheek and said, You reminded them they have power. Anthony nodded once and went to the hall closet for a file box. He labeled it with a marker. Nothing dramatic, just clear. Hattiesburg, stop. He copied the hospital record, the report photo, the overwrite notice, and Marisol's contact. The printer jammed and beeped like it wanted a vote too. By late afternoon, Anthony drove his father's sedan back toward the station to retrieve the license and push for a logged receipt. His father stayed home, hand on the peas, insisting he was fine. A neighbor waved, then froze mid-gesture when she saw the police building ahead through the windshield. At the counter, the clerk said the license would be released after review and slid a form toward him. Come back later, she said. Anthony asked for a supervisor's signature on his preservation request. She stamped it, date smeared, then waved him off the way people wave off a car. He walked down the station steps with the stamped receipt in his wallet, thinking about the 7-day clock. His father's sedan sat in visitor parking, dusty from a night of waiting. Under the wiper blade, a folded sheet rested like a parking ticket with ambition and no address. He pulled it free and unfolded it halfway. The first line used his name. The second mentioned his father. And the word trespass sat in the middle, like bait. He didn't finish reading. Anthony went through the station doors again, the folded notice visible in his grip so no one could claim it was hidden. The clerk at the window glanced at the heading and slid her chair back like the paper had teeth. What's that? A trespass warning with my father's name on it, Anthony said. It's dated today. I want a receipt that you received my preservation request, and I want a supervisor to tell me who thinks my dad is a threat to city property. The clerk's smile returned on instinct. You'll have to wait. Marisol stepped close enough that her shoulder brushed his. Not here, she said. Not while they're watching you choose a tone. Anthony noticed 2 uniforms near the hallway, not moving, not pretending to work. He folded the notice and put it away. Outside, Marisol didn't soften it. They want you loud, she said. Loud makes paperwork easy to ignore. She drove him to Gulf Coast Legal Aid, a small office that stayed busy without advertising why. A staff attorney met them with a notepad and a practiced calm. Your father has a civil claim, she said. In situations like this, the city often offers a quick settlement. Medical bills, a check, maybe a statement that doesn't admit fault. Anthony asked. And in exchange? Typically a release, she replied. Sometimes confidentiality, sometimes language that limits future complaints. Marisol leaned forward. So you pay the man and buy his silence. The attorney didn't flinch. I'd call it buying safety, she said. Fast money keeps people from being dragged through months of hearings. Anthony held his questions until the attorney paused. If we sign, he said, do they stop showing up at his door? The attorney looked at her notes instead of his face. They stop with him, she said. They don't stop with the habit. Back in the parking lot, Marisol opened her trunk and pulled out a thumb drive taped to an index card. I found a copy of the full video, she said. Not from the guy who posted it. Someone else saved it. Someone else? Anthony asked. A teenager, Marisol said. He recorded the screen when the upload first hit. Then he backed it up because his mom told him not to get involved. That's parenting in 2027. Anthony took the drive, then pulled an evidence bag from his kit and set it on the seat without sealing it yet. They sat with his laptop open, battery low, charger plugged in. The file played. His father's hand rose, palm out. Waller's voice stayed polite until it didn't. The slap landed. The clip ran longer than the version online, long enough for Waller to turn away and speak to someone out of view. Captain knows, Waller said. He said, handle it. Street noise washed over the words, but they were clear. Waller sounded relaxed, like he was confirming lunch plans. Marisol watched Anthony's face for a reaction and got none. He paused the video, rewound 10 seconds, played it again, then clicked the file properties and wrote down the creation time. That's your missing why, she said. It wasn't a bad day. It's a system. Anthony didn't answer with a speech. He opened a legal pad and started a chain list. Source name, device type, date and time received, who handled it. He wrote Marisol Vega beside transfer, then the name from the index card beside origin, then added screen capture of public upload. He photographed the list, photographed the thumb drive, and emailed both to an address he used for case notes. Boring subject line, no adjectives. Marisol tapped the dashboard. If you want peace, they'll sell it, she said. But it comes with terms. They'll call you welcome, as long as you don't act like you belong. Anthony sealed the drive in the evidence bag and wrote the date across the tape. The easy route was right there. Take a check, keep his father away from the station, drive back to Jackson, let time do the rest. He didn't say that out loud. He just picked up his phone and scrolled to Damon Price. Marisol watched the screen light up. Tell him you need a meeting through channels, she said. Anthony hit speaker. The call rang once. Price, Damon said. Anthony turned the key and pulled the door shut. I need you to see something the right way, he said, and eased the car out of the lot. Damon didn't ask for details over an open line. Where are you? Southbound, Hattiesburg, Anthony said. I'm bringing something sealed. I need you and an AUSA, not local. A pause, then. Text me the time. Anthony pressed the accelerator while headlights filled his rearview mirror. The headlights stayed glued to the rearview mirror for 3 miles, close enough to be deliberate, far enough to deny it. Anthony kept both hands steady on the wheel and let the speed limit do the talking. Damon Price stayed on speaker, listening to road noise and Anthony's short answers. Give me the timestamp on that file, Damon said. Anthony read it off from the label he'd written on the evidence bag. Marisol sat rigid in the passenger seat, phone on her thigh, not scrolling, not posting. Meet me at Jackson, Damon said. Back lot, 10 minutes. It took longer than 10. Damon met them behind the field office with another man in a suit, no tie, face unreadable. This is Assistant U.S. Attorney Keller, Damon said. Show him what you've got. Anthony set the sealed bag on the trunk of his car and slid his chain of custody notes beside it. Keller didn't touch the bag. He read, nodded once, then looked at Marisol. You're the journalist, Keller said. Freelancer, Marisol answered, and not tonight. Damon took the bag with gloved hands and walked it to an evidence locker. The metal door shut with a click that sounded like a small win. Anthony didn't smile. He asked Keller what the next step was. Next step is you don't do anything heroic, Keller said. You document. You let us request. You keep your father out of the line of fire. Back in Hattiesburg before dawn, Anthony carried a folder of hospital paperwork into his father's kitchen. The ER notes listed times and a nurse's signature that didn't flinch in ink. The timeline on his legal pad finally matched. The upload, the report photo, the dispatcher gap Marisol had pulled from a scanner app. It wasn't justice, but it was structure. His father ate 2 spoonfuls of oatmeal, then a third when the bowl stayed within reach. Marisol sat at the table with her laptop shut, hands around a mug she wasn't drinking. "I'm not pushing anything today," she said. "I pulled my draft." Anthony nodded and slid his phone across the table so she could see the note he'd made. Gas station overwrite. 7 days. She understood deadlines without needing a speech. Mid-morning, the gas station manager called back, voice bright like a customer service script. "Just letting you know," the manager said. "System does what it does. 7 days, and it rolls." An hour later, the station left a voicemail on Anthony's number. A man spoke like he'd said the same line all week. "Body camera malfunction," the voice said. "Officer's equipment failed to record. That's in the report." Anthony deleted nothing. He forwarded the voicemail to Damon and wrote the time down. His father watched from the doorway, ice pack in hand, face still set. A sedan parked across the street after lunch. No one stepped out. It sat there through a delivery truck and a school bus, engine off, as if patience was part of the job. When Anthony checked the mailbox, a man in a hoodie walked past, too slowly, stared at the numbers on the curb, then kept going without collecting mail of his own. The phone rang at 4. Unknown number. Anthony answered anyway. "Special Agent Mackey," a pleasant voice said. "Good afternoon." "Who is this?" Anthony asked. "A friend of the department," the voice replied. "Just calling to suggest you return to Jackson and focus on your work." Anthony didn't raise his voice. He didn't ask for threats to be repeated. "I'm at my father's home," he said, "and I'm still working." A pause, then a soft chuckle, like the caller was impressed by manners. "Of course," the voice said. "We all have families." The call ended. Anthony went to the hardware store before dinner, bought 2 deadbolts and a roll of black tape, paid cash, and brought everything back without commentary. He changed the locks with a screwdriver, then taped over the porch light switch so it couldn't be flipped on by accident. His father tried to help, got waved off with a hand gesture that meant, "Sit." "New locks," his father said. "That's what it takes to be protected now?" Anthony set the old deadbolt on the counter like a piece of evidence. "It's cheaper than a lawyer," he said. He moved the chair away from the front window and angled it toward the table. Then he checked the back door, the side gate, the spare key his father kept under a flower pot. The flower pot went to the garage. Marisol's phone rang just as Anthony finished wiping metal shavings off the floor. She answered, listened 1 second, and her face drained. "They're at the gas station," she said. He didn't tell his father where he was going. Anthony grabbed his keys, already moving, met Marisol at the curb before his father could ask where he was headed. She slid into the passenger seat, already dialing as he backed out. Streetlights streaked across the windshield and the same gas station sign flashed ahead, bright enough to look cheerful. Marisol ended the call and pointed. "They're there now." Anthony didn't answer. He kept the speed steady, eyes on the lane where the stop had happened. A patrol unit sat a block off, angled like it was waiting for a tow. He parked near the pumps, left the engine running, and checked his clock twice. The manager stood by the register with a clipboard, pretending the lottery tickets needed attention. When Anthony asked about the camera system, the man's smile tightened. "I'm just following policy," he said. A laminated sign above his head read, "Customers First." Under it, a gray metal box sat on the counter, sealed with tape like it mattered more than the gum rack. Marisol leaned on a cooler door, watching the clerk's hands. 2 customers bought beer and glanced at Anthony's folder as if it were contagious. Outside, the patrol car's engine hummed, not quite idling, not quite leaving, just reminding. Anthony stepped closer to the gray box and read the red tamper strip. The date was fresh. The signature wasn't the manager's. It looked like a hurried scrawl, first initial and last name. Nothing that matched the name tag on the man's shirt. Anthony asked, "Who opened this?" The manager shifted his clipboard. "Corporate," he said. Anthony pointed at the seal. "That's not corporate. That's a person. What's his badge number?" Marisol snapped a photo of the tape before anyone could cover it. The manager's eyes flicked toward the door, then back like he was waiting for permission to speak. A young officer walked in, hand resting near his belt like he'd been sent to buy time. His uniform was new enough to still crease. He nodded at the manager, then looked straight at Anthony's satchel on the floor. "Everything okay here?" he asked. Anthony kept his voice even. "I'm requesting a preservation notice for your department to deliver. I'm also asking this business to keep its footage." The officer's gaze stayed on the bag a beat too long, then drifted to Marisol's phone. Through the window, the patrol unit remained parked, as if waiting to see who blinked first. Anthony asked the manager for a written note stating when the system went down and who handled the hard drive. The man's pen hovered like it weighed a pound. "I can't," he said. "You can," Marisol replied. "It's paper." The young officer cleared his throat. "Sir, if the camera is malfunctioning, that's all we need." Anthony placed a blank sheet on the counter and slid it forward. "Write what you know. Date it. I'll take a copy." The manager wrote "camera down" in block letters, signed, and immediately pushed it away. The seal looked smudged, like it had been handled. On the way out, a man brushing past Anthony kept his eyes on the soda aisle and spoke without stopping. "Go back to Jackson," he murmured. "Leave the old man alone." Anthony didn't turn. He memorized the voice and the shoes. Marisol walked beside him, shoulders squared. In the parking lot, his father's phone rang. The display showed the station number. Anthony answered on speaker. "Mr. Mackey," a woman said, "your father needs to come in tomorrow to clarify resisting instructions." "If he doesn't?" Anthony asked. "Then we note failure to appear." Her tone was friendly, like a dentist reminder. Anthony dialed Damon while walking, not waiting to reach the car. "Price, it's moving," he said. "I'm at the gas station. They swapped the drive and got a manager to sign camera down." Damon's response came sharp. "Don't touch anything else. Get the manager's name, send me the photo." Marisol forwarded the seal picture and the handwritten note. Anthony took a photo of the patrol unit's plate number, then another of the customer's first sign above the sealed box, because irony counted as context. Damon told him to get his father out of sight tonight. Anthony opened the car door. Marisol turned the key, but a pickup slid in behind them and stopped close enough to erase the option of backing out. Another car angled across their hood, blocking the lane. Anthony's phone buzzed with an unknown number, then dropped to one bar. His fingers hovered over the lock button as he watched lights flare. He hit Damon's contact. No ring. He tried Keller. Same. A door on the sedan opened. A man stepped out, plain clothes, hands empty, voice practiced. "Leon Mackey." Anthony leaned toward Marisol. "Lock it," he said. The man pointed at the open door. "Get in." The plainclothes man kept his palm on the sedan door, patient, like he was offering a ride to church. Anthony hit the lock, twice. Marisol laid on the horn and pointed her phone at the man's face. "State your name." He didn't. "Leon Mackey." Anthony leaned toward the cracked window. "Show me a badge." "Sir, don't make this hard." Marisol shifted the car into drive and rolled forward an inch, bumper kissing air. The pickup behind them surged, then stopped. A second horn blast brought heads to the windows by the coolers. The manager stared at the counter like it could save him. Anthony lifted his phone, screen bright, already recording. "Say it again," he told the man. The man's jaw tightened. He stepped back, just enough. Marisol used the space, cutting the wheel and slipping past the sedan's front fender with a scrape of tire on curb. Someone shouted. No sirens followed, which told Anthony more than any threat. 2 blocks away, Damon Price finally picked up. "Where are you?" "Leaving the gas station," Anthony said. 2 vehicles boxed us in. Plainclothes tried to take my father. "Don't go home," Damon said. "Come to Jackson, now." Marisol didn't argue. She drove north with both hands steady, the way people drive when they've decided fear is a schedule problem. At the field office, Damon met them at the back entrance with a security guard and a clipboard. "Phones," the guard said. Anthony handed his over without protest. Marisol hesitated, then did the same. Damon led them to a small conference room and closed the door. "You can't be the case agent," he said. "Family makes you radioactive to defense attorneys." "I'm not asking to run it," Anthony replied. "I'm asking you to stop them from rewriting it." An older supervisor stepped in, listened for 30 seconds, then nodded toward Damon. "Document and relay," she said. "Let the task force touch everything." Damon pulled up a spreadsheet on his laptop, rows of stops along the same stretch of road near the Hattiesburg line, dates and times repeated like a bad song. "See the pattern?" he asked. Anthony scanned the columns. Every stop listed a soft reason: slow driving, broken tag light, wide turn. The narrative column read louder: aggressive, combative, resisting. "Same language," Anthony said. "Same template," Damon answered. "And the same 3 deputies sign off when body cams fail." He opened another file. Seized cash, impound fees, court costs paid in money orders. Names of local businesses appeared beside the transactions, always in small amounts that looked harmless until they stacked. "It's revenue," Damon said, "unofficial and shared." AUSA Keller walked in with a thin folder and no smile. "That gas station is a chosen blind spot," he said. "We've seen it before. Cameras down at convenient moments." Anthony thought of Waller glancing at the store and saying not to bother. Damon clicked to another tab. "And the time mismatch in the report," Damon said, "isn't sloppy. It's cover. Peter alibis beat phone video if you don't challenge it early." Marisol sat forward, elbows on the table. "So he turns off his body cam on purpose," she said. Keller didn't correct her. "It becomes custom," he said. "Custom becomes policy without anyone voting." Anthony asked for the next step in writing. Keller slid a checklist across the table: preservation orders, subpoenas, witness protection options, and one line that said, "Do not contact local department without coordination." Marisol read it, then looked at Anthony. "I won't post for the thrill," she said. "I'll track down the original filmer and get him counsel. But I need you to stick to this plan." Anthony didn't promise with emotion. He opened a new evidence log on a legal pad and wrote her name under Media Liaison, then wrote Damon's under Federal Contact, then Keller's office number. Damon pushed a dry erase board toward him. "Build your timeline. We'll match it to ours." Markers squeaked. Times lined up, then refused to. Anthony wrote 6:07 upload, 6:19 report, circled both, and drew a line that didn't connect. Marisol set her laptop on the table and typed names she wouldn't say aloud. "I can get the filmer to talk if you can keep a cruiser off his street." Keller nodded once. "We can offer protection, but he has to agree, and he has to tell the truth in a sworn statement." Anthony called his father from Damon's desk phone. "Stay away from the window tonight," he said. "I'm fine," Leon replied. "Then be fine farther from the glass," Anthony said. A phone buzzed on the table. Not his. The guard had kept it. Damon checked the screen and slid it across. Unknown number, 1 sentence. Hearing moved up. Tomorrow. Anthony stared at it, then reached for the marker again. The message stayed on the table like it owned a chair. Hearing moved up. Tomorrow. Anthony didn't ask Damon who might be sending it. Damon didn't offer. Keller took a pen and wrote the date on the corner of Anthony's timeline board, then underlined it once. "They're trying to lock the story in place before you can challenge it," Keller said. Once a judge hears aggressive driver enough times, it starts sounding like a fact. Marisol set her laptop down and turned it so Anthony could see a short email thread. "I found the original guy who filmed your dad," she said. "He's not the one who posted. He recorded, then sent it to a cousin, then everything went sideways." "Name?" Damon asked. Marisol hesitated, then gave it. "He says he'll talk to counsel. He won't go on record unless there's protection. He's got 2 kids and a job that can disappear with one phone call." Keller nodded as if he'd heard that sentence in 100 cities. "We can offer witness protection measures, but he has to sign a sworn statement and he has to stick with it." Anthony watched Damon's screen where the gas station overwrite policy sat in plain text. 7 days. The number wasn't dramatic. It was worse than that. It was ordinary. Damon slid a folder across the table. "Preservation request template," he said. "We can get a federal preservation order on the footage and the device, but we need you to stop doing field work. You're too visible down there." Anthony held the folder without opening it. The safe option sat right beside it. Wait, let Keller file everything, keep his father out of town for a week, accept that the gas station video might vanish and the local report might become the only version anyone officially heard. The other option meant stepping forward where every move could be labeled personal, sloppy, or illegal. He pictured his father's cheeks swelling, the way Leon answered questions with half words. He pictured the withdrawal statement already filled out for him like a meal order. The cost wasn't hidden. It was printed and stapled. A short thought landed and wouldn't move. Staying careful could still end with nothing left to preserve. Anthony opened the folder. "I want the order filed today," he said, "and I want the witness routed through counsel, not through Marisol's phone." Marisol didn't look relieved. She looked busy. "I can get him to Keller's office," she said, "but I need a time. I need to tell him this isn't a trap." Keller stood and checked his watch. "Jackson Courthouse is open. We file, then we call him. Damon, you coordinate. Anthony, you do not speak to anyone local, not even to clarify." They left in 2 cars. Anthony drove alone, hands steady on the wheel, eyes scanning out of habit. The federal courthouse in Jackson didn't feel welcoming, but it felt predictable, which was close enough. At the clerk's office window, a woman with reading glasses took the packet and flipped through it with practiced speed. "You're missing the civil cover sheet," she said. Keller leaned in. "It's an emergency preservation motion." "Doesn't matter," the clerk replied. "You want the system to move, you use the system." Anthony slid the extra form across when she pointed. The clerk tapped one line with her nail. "Fill it out exactly," she said. "Wrong box, it kicks back. Justice only runs on the right template." The words weren't meant to be funny. That's what made them land the way they did. Anthony filled the blanks. Keller signed where required. Damon's name went on the contact line. Anthony kept his own off the signature blocks, exactly as instructed, even though the case started at his father's front door. When the clerk stamped the packet, the sound was small and final. She handed back a conformed copy as if returning a library card. "Next," she said. In the hallway, Keller called the number Marisol had provided and put it on speaker. The phone rang twice. A man answered, voice tight. "Hello?" "This is Assistant U.S. Attorney Keller," Keller said. "You've been contacted about video evidence from a traffic stop in Hattiesburg. I'm offering you counsel and protection options if you're willing to provide a sworn statement." Silence on the other end, then a quick exhale. "I didn't do anything wrong," the man said. "I just filmed what happened." "You did," Keller replied, "and that's why we need to do this correctly." Anthony listened without jumping in. The urge to reassure didn't help anything. The man agreed to meet, but only if he could bring someone from his family. Keller gave a time and a location, then ended the call. Marisol texted that she was on her way to pick him up. Damon started typing an email to a security contact. Keller read the court stamp again like he didn't trust ink. Anthony folded the conformed copy and slid it into his jacket. A week ago, he'd been closing travel vouchers and thinking about dinner. Now he was counting days until a hard drive forgot on schedule. He stepped toward the exit and saw Trent Waller at the far end of the corridor. leaning near a bulletin board like he'd been waiting for the building to catch up. Waller's eyes lifted, locked on Anthony, and his mouth formed the beginning of a smile as Anthony kept walking. When Anthony reached him, Waller pushed off the wall and smiled with the same mouth that had called a slap smooth. "Agent Mackey," he said, "Jackson treating you well?" Anthony kept walking, forcing Waller to match his pace. "Why are you here?" Waller's grin widened, friendly on paper. "Just supporting our folks. You know how it is. Community partnership." A man in a suit stepped out of a courtroom doorway and nodded to Waller like they'd shared coffee. Waller leaned closer, voice lowered. "Funny thing," he said. "Your dad makes a scene, and suddenly you're filing federal paperwork. You FBI and you let your old man turn into a circus act?" Anthony stopped. The hallway traffic flowed around them, people pretending not to listen. "My father got hit," Anthony said. "And you're here because you know that looks bad." Waller lifted both hands, palms out. "Looks? I'm just here for the truth." Keller's voice cut through the space. "Anthony, room 214. The hearing room was small, packed with locals who acted like they'd been invited. A county attorney sat at one table with a younger lawyer and a stack of binders. They greeted the judge by first name when he entered, then corrected themselves with a quick, "Your Honor," like it was an afterthought. Keller spoke first, crisp and narrow. He explained the risk of evidence destruction, the gas station overwrite policy, the body camera anomalies, and the need for an immediate preservation order. He avoided saying Anthony's name. Anthony sat behind him, hands folded, as if posture could keep his role from leaking. The county attorney stood and smiled at the judge. "Your Honor, we're not here to take sides," he said. "We're here to calm a misunderstanding before it becomes a political storm." He nodded toward Anthony without using his name. An elderly gentleman was stopped for impeding traffic. He became agitated. He refused commands. My client acted to maintain order. Keller asked for the report time discrepancy to be addressed. The younger lawyer shrugged. "Clerical error," he said. "These men work long hours." The judge frowned at Keller's exhibit list. "Counsel, you want me to order preservation of private business footage based on a social media clip?" "It's not just a clip," Keller replied. "It's a pattern, and the window is 7 days." The judge tapped his pen, then looked toward the county table. "Has the department secured its own recordings?" The county attorney nodded smoothly. "Of course. We've already reviewed relevant materials." Anthony watched Waller in the back row. Waller didn't look at the judge. He looked at Anthony, like the hearing was a performance he'd seen before. Keller requested that the court compel release of the body camera status logs. The judge shook his head. "I'm not granting expedited discovery today," the judge said. "File your motions in the normal course. We'll set a schedule." Then, as if to soften it, the judge added, "I'm ordering the department to retain what it already has. No deletions." The county attorney nodded as if he'd offered that idea himself. Keller asked, "And the gas station system?" The judge flipped a page. "Private business. I'm not seizing equipment on a rumor. Send a letter. If there's non-compliance, file again." The younger lawyer leaned toward the county attorney and whispered something that made both of them smile. Across the aisle, a deputy in dress uniform shook hands with the bailiff like they were at a reunion. Marisol's name was mentioned once by the county attorney with a thin emphasis. "We're also concerned about media pressure," he said. "People are filming officers and editing clips." Keller replied, "People film because they don't trust what gets written." The judge looked over his glasses. "Counsel, everyone deserves fairness. This court is not biased." He said it to a room where half the faces already knew his weekend plans, and probably his favorite lunch spot. Keller pushed once more, tone controlled. "Your Honor, the gas station overwrites automatically. If we wait, it will be gone." The judge leaned back. "Then you should have filed sooner." Outside the courtroom, Keller's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then tightened his jaw. Damon Price stepped into the hall and spoke low. "The witness canceled," Damon said. "He got scared after a visit from someone claiming to be concerned." Keller exhaled through his nose. "Put it in writing anyway. Have him signed with counsel present." Anthony looked down the hall and saw Waller again, now standing near the water fountain. Waller raised 2 fingers in a small wave, the kind people use at church. Anthony's phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw Marisol's message. "They just stopped by your dad's house." Anthony drove back to Hattiesburg with Marisol's message still glowing on his phone. Damon Price had told him to stay put in Jackson until Keller could regroup, but Leon Mackey was alone. The highway signs didn't argue, and neither did the tight buzz of missed calls. He called Leon on the desk phone at the field office so the number wouldn't route through Hattiesburg. Leon answered on the second ring. "Are you okay?" "Depends what you mean by okay," Leon said. "What happened?" "They came by," Leon said. 2 of them. Said I needed to sign something about refusing an order." "Did you?" "I told them I wanted my son on the phone." Anthony asked where they were now. "Down the street," Leon said. "Or they were. I didn't invite them for coffee." Anthony reached the house just as dusk settled over the block. Leon sat at the kitchen table with a new envelope opened in front of him. Hands steady, but eyes fixed on the paper like it might move. A citation for failure to comply listed tomorrow's date and a fine. "They slapped me and sent an invoice," Leon said, voice flat. Anthony didn't answer with comfort. He photographed the citation, then checked the header for a case number and the officer name. It wasn't Waller this time. A different deputy had signed it, neat handwriting, as if the pen had never shaken. Marisol arrived 10 minutes later, parking down the street instead of the driveway. She came in without knocking, phone already in her hand. "Someone in the department is talking," she said. "To who?" Anthony asked. "To me. And maybe to them," Marisol replied. She showed a text from an unknown contact. "They're hunting the full clip. They asked about your reporter friend." Anthony took the phone and read it twice. Marisol watched his face like she expected him to flare. He handed it back and wrote the exact wording into his notes. The neighbor across the street wandered over with a casserole dish and a look that said she regretted showing up. "I just saw the news," she said. Leon thanked her and set the dish on the counter. The neighbor lowered her voice. "Folks are saying you're making it worse," she added, eyes on Anthony. "They say you're dragging this town through mud." Marisol let out a short breath. "Ma'am, the mud was here first," she said. The neighbor flinched and backed away, promising to pray again. Anthony stepped to the hallway and called Damon Price. The line connected, then Damon spoke fast. "Keller's filing a new motion," Damon said. "Local counsel is arguing your evidence was obtained illegally." "It was a public upload and a screen capture," Anthony said. "Doesn't matter," Damon replied. "They'll try to get a judge to sign a warrant for anything in your possession connected to the video. That includes your father's house if they think it's here." Anthony looked at Leon at the table and at the file box by the pantry where he kept medical records. The sealed drive was already in federal custody, but the local side didn't need the truth to make a mess. His supervisor from Jackson called next, voice tight like a collar. "Anthony, listen," she said. "You can't freelance this. If you confront anyone local, they'll claim intimidation. If you touch evidence, they'll say you contaminated it." "I'm not touching it," Anthony said. "Then don't even look like you are," she replied. "We're building a federal case. One wrong step turns you into the story." Anthony said he understood, because saying anything else would change nothing. Leon pushed the citation toward Anthony. "I don't want them coming back," Leon said. "I'm too old to be arguing with paper." Anthony slid the citation into a folder and asked, "Did they give you a court date?" "Tomorrow morning," Leon said. "They said just sign and it'll go away." Marisol leaned on the counter. "That's their favorite sentence," she said. "It never means what it sounds like." A notification buzzed on Marisol's phone. She grimaced and turned the screen away from Leon. "They're posting your dad's address," she said. "Not directly, but close enough." Anthony took her phone and saw comments under a local page. "Why's the FBI boy stirring up trouble?" Old man should have listened. We've got real crime. Stop making this about race. He handed the phone back and walked to the front door, checking the new deadbolt he installed. The porch light stayed off behind the tape switch. Outside, the sedan from earlier sat farther down the street, headlights off. A man walked past the mailbox again, slower than before. Anthony didn't call him out. He only closed the curtain and moved Leon away from the front window without saying why. Marisol spoke low, not to Anthony, but to the room. "If they come with the warrant, you don't argue on the porch," she said. "You let them take what they came for, and you make sure it's logged." Leon gave a small nod, like he was learning a new rule for surviving his own street. Anthony opened his laptop and printed copies of the hospital record and the preservation motion stamp. He placed them in plain sight on the table, not as a shield, but as proof of sequence. At 9:30, Keller called to confirm the witness meeting had been postponed. "They're spooking him," Keller said. "Stay in your lane tonight. If local shows up, don't resist. Call me and Damon." Anthony said, "Leon has court tomorrow." "Do not let him go alone," Keller replied. "I'll have someone there." Marisol tucked her laptop away and stood. "I'll keep digging," she said. "But if they ask about me again, I'm not answering calls from unknown numbers." Anthony walked her to the door and checked the street before unlocking it. She stepped out, then paused. "They'll try to make your evidence look dirty," she said. "Don't let them touch your hands." Anthony locked up and turned toward the file box. Leon sat with his back straight, eyes on the citation again. The house phone rang once and stopped. A second later, a heavy knock hit the front door. 3 times. Not polite. A man's voice carried through the wood. "Open up! Search and check. We've got a warrant." Anthony didn't answer the door. He lifted a finger to Leon, then grabbed his phone and dialed Keller with his other hand. The line rang while the knocking came again. Harder. Leon rose, stiff knees first, and Anthony guided him toward the hallway without speaking. The voice stayed calm, which made it worse. "Mr. Mackey, don't make this difficult. Open the door now." He hit speaker, set the phone on the counter, and reached for the chain lock key. Another fist slammed the door. "Police! Last warning, open it. Right now." Anthony kept Keller on speaker while he slid the chain into place. The knocking stopped long enough for a man to announce, "Warrant!" Anthony opened the door a crack, leaving the chain tight. 2 officers stood there, not Waller, both wearing gloves like they expected a mess. "Mr. Mackey, we need to ensure you're not holding evidence related to the viral video," one said. Anthony asked to see the paper. The warrant listed devices, not people. Leon's breathing turned shallow behind him. Anthony stepped aside, phone still recording. Marisol waited on the porch steps, hands visible, saying nothing, watching faces. They walked through the living room without looking at Leon. One officer pointed at the file box on the counter. "Open it." Anthony lifted the lid and showed hospital papers. Nothing digital. The other officer asked for his laptop and Marisol's phone. "Mine is with the bureau," Anthony said. Marisol handed hers over, jaw clenched. The officer scrolled, then paused at a folder labeled Hattiesburg Stop. "Cute," he muttered. Anthony replied, "I like my labels accurate." The officer photographed the screen and left the folder intact. Before leaving, they made Leon sign a receipt, as if they'd returned property today. Once the cruisers rolled off, Keller called back with Damon on the line. "Do not stay there tonight," Keller said. "We'll place your father somewhere neutral and put a deputy marshal near him." Leon protested, but Anthony handed him his coat and walked him to Marisol's car. She drove them to a motel on the edge of town, one that took cash and asked no questions. A federal agent met them in the lot, introduced himself, and offered Leon a room key. Leon looked at Anthony and said, "I wanted oatmeal, not witness protection." Anthony nodded and checked the hallway. At Forest General the next morning, Anthony asked for the charge nurse who triaged Leon. The same nurse remembered the bruise and the way Leon answered, something like that. She pulled the electronic log and printed a time-stamped note. Intake at 7:02 p.m. Vitals at 7:09. Physician at 7:31. People try to change stories, she said. Computers don't care. Anthony thanked her, wrote her name, and asked if she'd be willing to certify it later. She nodded, already back to work. In the parking lot, he scanned the printout, then photographed it, then emailed it to Keller and Damon immediately. They stopped at the diner before heading back. The manager recognized Marisol and didn't pretend not to. "You need a timestamp?" he asked. He pulled a receipt from the register tape, showing the exact minute Anthony and Marisol paid the day they reviewed the report photo. Then he opened a small office drawer and produced a grainy still from a cheap hallway camera, the clock in the corner matching the receipt. "I keep records," he said. "Health Department, IRS, whoever." Anthony took copies, signed a note confirming he received them, and slid the originals back like they were fragile too. Back at Marisol's apartment, Anthony spread documents across her table and stopped calling it a fight. Each item got a header, a date, and a source. He printed the gas station's overwrite notice, stapled it to the manager's handwritten camera down slip, and added the photo of the fresh seal. Marisol typed witness contact sheets without adjectives. Anthony labeled a new folder on her laptop, then stuck a strip of masking tape on it. Not a miracle, just paperwork. Marisol looked at the tape and said, "That's the most romantic thing you've written all week." Anthony kept sorting without pause. Keller called after midnight with a different tone, less cautious, more procedural. "They served a warrant on a federal agent's father," he said. "That's not normal friction, that's interference." Damon added that Internal Affairs had requested a briefing, and a marshal could escort the filmer to sign his statement. Marisol said she'd meet the family first and bring them to Keller's office. No cameras, no posts. Anthony emailed the updated packet and asked the motel agent to log every visitor by time and badge. Leon texted a single word, "Still awake." Anthony replied, "Stay put." He turned back to work. In the morning, Marisol walked into the motel lobby with 2 coffees and a file folder. She handed 1 coffee to Leon, who accepted it like a peace offering. Then she showed Anthony an email from Keller's office. "Main hearing is set," she said. "They're calling it a motion conference, but it's the first real one." Anthony scanned the attached witness list, eyes jumping past names he didn't know. Halfway down, printed clean, sat Trent Waller, required appearance. Anthony lowered the phone, stared at the line again, and reached for his pen as Marisol kept talking about the next steps. He arrived at the Forest County Courthouse with Leon and a marshal who didn't speak unless spoken to. Keller met them at the steps with a thin folder and a pen that clicked too often. Marisol stayed back near the hallway benches, phone off, eyes moving. The county attorney greeted the clerk by first name and shook hands with 2 deputies before the judge even took the bench. Leon's citation sat in Anthony's pocket, creased where his fingers kept checking. When proceedings started, the local lawyer called it a misunderstanding and asked the court to restore order by limiting recordings and sealing exhibits. He described Leon as confused and combative, then slipped in, known to drive erratically, like it was common knowledge. Leon kept his hands on his knees. Anthony didn't correct anyone. He watched for the moment the story outran the paperwork. Keller let them talk, marking each exaggeration with a tap of his pen, as if tallying tickets. The county attorney turned to the judge and said, "We're not biased here," while nodding to Waller in the back row like he was family. Then he argued the viral clip was edited, the body camera malfunctioned, and the gas station camera happened to be down. He offered the incident report as the clean version and suggested federal interest was outside agitation. Anthony counted the claims: 3 excuses, 1 insult, 0 timestamps. Leon's face didn't move, but his foot bouncing. Keller responded with paper, not volume. He entered the ER intake printout and the diner receipt, both time-stamped by people who had nothing to gain. He asked the judge to compare those times to the report's time and the upload time. The local lawyer objected that civilians misunderstand clocks. Keller asked for the department's body cam status log again. The judge hesitated, eyes drifting to the county table, then granted Waller's testimony request, as if that would settle it once and... Waller walked to the stand with the confidence of a man used to being believed. He swore in, looked at Keller, and smiled like they shared a joke. Keller asked if his body camera recorded the stop. Waller said, "No, sir, malfunction." Keller asked if he threatened the bystander filming. Waller said, "Absolutely not." Then he added, "I followed the law." The local lawyer nodded, as if agreement could be entered as evidence. Leon's jaw tightened, then relaxed on command. Keller didn't argue. He asked Waller where he stood when he spoke about the gas station camera. Waller answered, "By the driver's door." Keller asked what he told the crowd. Waller said that the camera was broken. Keller asked if he knew that for a fact. Waller shrugged and said maintenance happens. The judge glanced at Anthony as if daring him to react. Anthony kept his hands still, letting Keller carry the weight. Marisol's eyes stayed on Waller's mouth, waiting. Keller asked one more question. "Did you strike Mr. Mackey?" Waller met the judge's eyes. "No." Keller turned, palm open toward Anthony. Anthony stood, handed Keller a thumb drive and an evidence bag, and sat back down. Keller said, "Exhibit F." The screen at counsel table showed the full file, untrimmed, with Waller's body cam light dark and his voice clear. In it, he warned the filmer, claimed the corner camera was busted, then slapped Leon and called that smooth cooperation. The room shifted, chairs scraping, murmurs rising until the judge called for order. Waller's smile vanished. Keller asked why he testified no when the video showed his hand. Waller stammered that the clip lacked context. Keller replayed the moment with sound, then asked who told him to keep cameras off. Waller snapped, "Captain said it. We do it all the time." He tried to recover with, "I just follow the law." And the court reporter's mic caught every syllable today. Keller didn't gloat. He asked Waller to repeat the captain's name, slowly. Waller did, then added two more, thinking distance would save him. Keller nodded to a man in the gallery wearing no badge in sight. The man lifted a small device and showed the judge the live seal number. Federal audio capture, authorized, was running in real time. The county attorney started to stand, then sat back down when Keller said, "This is already on the record, counsel, sir." Waller's face went pale. He leaned toward the microphone and tried a new angle, saying the department had a process for handling videos, that reports were adjusted for consistency. The judge asked what he meant. Waller answered too fast. Keller raised a hand and the courthouse doors opened. Two federal agents walked in with cuffs ready. Anthony turned toward Leon, but the first cuff clicked as the agents reached for Waller's wrists and the room surged, swallowing Anthony's next breath. Anthony waited until the agents had Waller moving before he reached for Leon's elbow. The marshal guided them out a side corridor, past a vending machine. Keller caught up with a folder tucked under his arm. "Don't speak to press," Keller said. "We're not," Anthony replied. "Good. Get him home. Damon will call." Outside, Leon's knees locked for a second on the top step. Anthony steadied him and walked him to the car. Marisol trailed behind, eyes on the courthouse doors, then on the street. No one cheered. A couple of locals pretended to look at their phones, the same way they had pretended not to see the slap. Leon sat in the passenger seat and adjusted his seatbelt with slow fingers. Anthony started the engine and pulled away. His phone buzzed once, then again. He ignored it until they reached the first light. "Are we going to the motel?" Leon asked. "No," Anthony said. "Home." The house smelled like detergent and old coffee, normal in a way that felt unfamiliar after weeks of paperwork and waiting rooms. Anthony unlocked the new deadbolt, then locked it again behind them, checking the strike plate with his thumb. Leon went straight to the kitchen table and set his hat down the way he always did, brim facing the window. Anthony filled the kettle, set it on the stove, and turned the burner on. He opened the cabinet where Leon kept his tea bags, picked the black box, and set 2 mugs on the counter. Leon watched him without comment until Anthony pulled the pill organizer from the drawer. "You take these with food," Anthony said. "I know," Leon said. "You're acting like my wife." Anthony slid a bowl of crackers toward him and checked the labels on the bottles anyway. He didn't scold. He just lined up what needed lining up the same way he lined up evidence bags. When the kettle whistled, he poured water, dropped tea bags, and set a timer on his phone for 3 minutes. Marisol stood by the doorway, hands empty, as if she didn't want to touch anything that belonged to the family. Anthony nodded at the living room chair. "Sit," he said. "I'm fine," she replied. "Sit anyway." She sat. Keller called while the tea steeped. Anthony put it on speaker and kept stirring the mugs with a spoon. "They're taking Waller and 2 others into federal custody," Keller said. "More warrants are coming." Leon stared at the table. "Do I still have court tomorrow?" he asked. "No," Keller said. "That citation is dead." Anthony didn't thank Keller with big words. He asked what forms Leon needed to sign and when. Keller gave him a list and a time for the next meeting. Anthony wrote it on a sticky note and pressed it to the fridge. After the call, Leon reached for the folder Anthony had carried home. The top page was the old citation, the one with the smeared stamp. Leon tapped it once. "They really do charge for everything," he said. Anthony slid it into a manila envelope. He walked to the garage, found a screwdriver, and went back outside for a minute. The patrol car decal he'd seen in the video, "Protect and Serve," wasn't on his father's sedan, but the phrase had followed them anyway, printed on the local department's pamphlet that had been shoved through the station window. He folded that pamphlet twice and put it in the kitchen drawer with rubber bands and spare keys, a place for things that needed to exist but didn't need to be seen. Marisol stood, ready to leave. "Don't," Anthony said. She paused. "I've got work," she said. "I know." He looked at her, then at the kettle, then back. "I need you next to me for this part," he said. "Not in front, just next to me." Marisol nodded once, like agreement could be kept simple. Damon Price called next, voice rough with long hours. "You did good keeping your hands clean," Damon said. "You still need to keep your father away from anyone local. Federal marshals can rotate coverage." Anthony wrote another name and another number in his notebook. "Send it," he said. Leon sipped tea, then set the mug down. "You're FBI and you've turned into an accountant," he said. Anthony slid the notebook toward himself and kept writing. He sat at the kitchen table with the folder open, making a list for tomorrow. Meet Keller at 9, get Leon's medical certification signed, email the diner receipt, confirm the witness escort, replace Marisol's phone. The pen moved across the page in clean lines. From the front street came the low crunch of tires on gravel, then the soft stop of an engine settling. Anthony's pen hovered, and he lifted his head. Anthony stepped to the front window and lifted the curtain edge. A dark SUV idled at the curb, unapologetic. A man in a windbreaker waited on the sidewalk, hands open. Anthony cracked the door. "Mr. Mackey?" "U.S. Marshal Service," the man said. "We're here tonight. Keller requested coverage." Leon shuffled into view, hat in hand. "They send babysitters now?" Leon asked. "Just a layer between you and anyone feeling bold," the marshal said. Anthony latched the chain and went back to the table, pen moving again. By morning, Keller's office emailed a corrected docket notice and a short letter. The failure to comply citation was withdrawn, replaced by a note calling it an error. Leon read it twice. "So they can unwrite it," he said. Anthony stacked the hospital certification, the stamped preservation motion, and the new letter into one folder. Marisol arrived with a folder of her own. "No names in my draft," she said. "Just documents and the timeline." Anthony drove Leon to Keller's meeting room, where Damon Price waited with a witness advocate. No one raised their voice. Papers moved, signatures landed, and Leon's complaint number was updated without anyone calling him aggressive. The arrests started before lunch. Trent Waller was charged first, then a supervisor, then a city clerk tied to the fee ledger Keller had flagged. A county commissioner's name appeared on an affidavit, not as a headline, but as a line item. Anthony watched the local station report it between weather and sports, the anchor using alleged like a seatbelt. Leon sat in his recliner and changed channels. Only when the screen showed Waller's wrists cuffed did Leon say, "Looks like his equipment works fine today." Federal agents didn't sweep the whole department. They picked names, bank records, and reports. 2 deputies were placed on leave, and 3 others kept working under new supervisors. Keller sent Leon a 1-page correction for his file, and the clerk at the station had to stamp it. Leon asked for the stamp ink to dry before he touched it. A marshal rotated shifts outside the house, parked where neighbors could see, which made a few of them suddenly remember appointments elsewhere. No one waved. The mayor called a short meeting at City Hall, inviting community leaders and anyone with a camera. Anthony went because Keller asked. Marisol stood near the back, notebook out, recorder off. A city attorney whispered into the mayor's ear the way a parent corrects a child. The mayor cleared his throat. "We will be more transparent moving forward," he said. The attorney hissed, "Don't say that." A council member added, "We're committed to accountability," then asked what accountability meant in writing. No one laughed, but a few people blinked hard. Outside, a man in a ball cap pointed at Anthony. "Y'all trying to ruin this town," he said. A woman with a stroller shot back, "Maybe it shouldn't be held together with tape." An older neighbor brought Leon a casserole and no speech. Another neighbor crossed the street to avoid being seen doing either. The community didn't unite. It rearranged itself. Grudges and relief sharing the same grocery line. Marisol published her piece 2 days later. She posted screenshots of the ER intake timestamp, the diner receipt, the overwrite notice, and the report's mismatched time. She left out the filmer's name, blurred faces, and wrote 1 sentence explaining why. Anthony read it once and forwarded it to Keller. Her phone rang all afternoon, and she let most calls die. The department issued a statement that week. It said Leon Mackey was not under investigation, that the stop was under review, and that the city regretted any misunderstanding. Leon held the printed copy, then slid it into the drawer with the pamphlet that said, "Protect and Serve." "That's a long way to say sorry," he said. Anthony checked Leon's prescriptions, locked the door, and wrote the next meeting time on the fridge. That evening, Damon called while Anthony rinsed 2 mugs. "Keller wants you on a long-term coordination group," Damon said. "Federal, state, local oversight. We need someone who knows the town and the paper trail." Anthony stood on the porch with Damon Price still on the line, coat half on, watching the Marshall SUV at the curb. Leon was at the kitchen table, moving papers into a drawer as if he were clearing a place to eat. Anthony kept his voice low. "Tell Keller I'll do it," he said. "Do what exactly?" Damon asked. "Coordination group. Long term." "You sure?" Anthony looked down the street, then back at the door. "I'm sure enough to show up tomorrow." He ended the call, went back in, and set the coat on a chair instead of the floor. Leon glanced up when Anthony sat across from him. No questions, just a nod, like they both understood that the trouble didn't end when cuffs clicked. "They gonna let you go back to Jackson?" Leon asked. Anthony opened his notebook and wrote a name and number. "They can try to tell me to," he said. He called his supervisor and kept the call on speaker so Leon could hear the tone. "I'm requesting a temporary duty assignment in Hattiesburg," Anthony said. A pause, then a measured reply. "You're asking to live in the blast radius." "I already am," Anthony said. Marisol arrived before noon with flyers Keller's office had cleared. No slogans, just phone numbers, steps, and a line about free legal consults on Tuesdays. Anthony drove her to the community center and stayed back while she spoke with the director. "We're not hosting a protest," the director said. "Good," Marisol answered. "We're hosting instructions." They set up folding tables and a sign-in sheet with no last names. Damon sent a marshal to stand near the door. Anthony taped 1 sheet to the wall. "Save video, back it up, and call this hotline." He wrote it twice in thick marker. People trickled in after work, some alone, some in pairs, all pretending it was just another meeting. Anthony didn't introduce himself as FBI. He handed out manila folders and showed them how to label files with dates and locations. A young dad who kept his hands in his pockets stepped up and asked, "If I record, can they take my phone?" Keller's advocate answered first, "They can try, that's why you back it up." Then the same man admitted he'd filmed Leon. He spoke without bravado, demonstrating how he uploaded to a cloud drive and locked it with a passcode. After the meeting, Anthony walked the tables and collected the sign-in sheets, sliding them into a shred bin Keller had brought. Marisol packed her laptop and glanced at him. "You really staying?" she asked. Anthony didn't answer with a vow. He texted Damon a new address for mail and asked Keller for the paperwork to formalize the assignment. Damon replied with a single word, "Approved." Leon waited in the car, window down. "Your mother would have called this stubborn," he said. Anthony handed him the folder of updated complaint records and shut the car door. Marisol followed, holding her car keys. 2 days later, Anthony drove Leon past the gas station on purpose, mid-afternoon traffic steady. The pumps looked the same, the "Customers First" sign still taped above the counter. A patrol unit rolled by in the opposite lane. Anthony watched the deputy's chest as it passed. The body camera light blinked green, bright enough to see from the road. Leon noticed the stare and leaned toward the windshield. "Don't get pulled over for thinking too hard," he said. Anthony eased off the accelerator anyway and let the car coast at exactly the limit, as if numbers could keep peace today. Back at the house, Leon set his hat on the table and stared through the window at the street like it was a channel he didn't trust. Anthony checked the locks, then the medicine, then the folder, same order every time. Marisol called to say the hotline had taken 4 messages already, mostly people asking how to file a complaint without losing their job. Leon nodded toward the driveway. "Remember to drive the right speed," he said. "Folks here are allergic to going slow." Anthony wrote the hotline number on a second sheet and taped it to the fridge tonight. When the sun dropped, Anthony packed his workbag with fresh folders and an extra charger, then set it by the door. He didn't tell Leon to sleep. He only checked the locks and left the taped porch switch alone. His keys lay beside the notebook. Anthony grabbed them and stepped onto the porch, pausing to watch the road past the corner where the stop began. He opened his phone to contacts, scrolled past Damon and Keller, and stopped on one name. His thumb hit call as he started down the steps. The line rang once, and he kept moving.